You won't believe the nightmare I've been living through. All thanks to my HOA. It all started with this beautiful, majestic 100-year-old oak tree that stood right on the property line between my house and the community green space. This tree wasn't just old. It was a landmark, a piece of living history that my family and I absolutely adored. We'd have picnics under it. My kids climbed its lower branches when they were little, and its shade was a blessing during our scorching summer months. It was healthy, strong, and a certified arborist had confirmed it was in perfect condition just a year ago. Then, she moved in. Let's call her Karen. Karen became the new head of our HOA board, and from day one, she seemed to have a personal vendetta against nature itself. First, it was the flowers someone planted in the common area too messy. Then, it was the bird feeders attracting pests, she claimed. Her reign of terror was just getting started, and unfortunately, her gaze soon fell upon my beloved oak tree. She called a special HOA meeting, her agenda singular and clear. The tree had to go. Her reasoning was flimsy at best. She claimed its leaves were a nuisance, clogging the gutters of the community clubhouse 100 yards away. She said its roots might one day threaten the foundation of a gazebo that didn't even exist yet but was in her 5-year plan. She even had the audacity to say the tree was an eyesore that blocked the optimal view from her back patio. I went to that meeting, armed with evidence. I had my arborist's report, photos of the tree in all its glory, and a petition signed by 2/3 of the neighborhood who loved the tree as much as I did. I presented my case calmly and logically. I explained the tree's health, its environmental benefits, and its sentimental value to so many of us. Other neighbors spoke up in support, sharing their own fond memories. We thought, surely, reason would prevail. We were wrong. Karen, with the support of her 2 cronies on the board, dismissed everything. She waved away the arborist's report, calling him just some tree hugger I've never heard of. She ignored the petition, stating that popularity doesn't dictate policy. In her mind, her authority was absolute. The vote was a sham. It was 3-2-2. And just like that, the fate of a century-old living thing was sealed by a petty tyrant's whim. They had voted to remove the tree. I was devastated, but I wasn't going to give up. I immediately consulted a lawyer who specialized in property disputes. He told me that since the tree was on a shared property line, they couldn't legally remove it without my consent. He drafted a cease and desist letter, which we sent to the HOA board via certified mail. The letter clearly stated that any attempt to cut down the tree would be met with legal action. I felt a small glimmer of hope. Surely, faced with a legal threat, they would have to back down. For a few weeks, everything was quiet. I thought maybe, just maybe, Karen had come to her senses. Oh, how naive I was. She wasn't backing down. She was just getting sneaky. Instead of hiring a professional, licensed, insured tree removal service, which would have likely refused the job after seeing the property lines and the legal letter, she decided to take matters into her own hands. One Saturday morning, I was woken up by the god-awful roar of a chainsaw. I bolted upright, my heart pounding. I ran to the window, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Karen and her husband were out there, with a massive, rented chainsaw, trying to cut down the oak tree themselves. Neither of them had any safety gear on, no helmets, no goggles, nothing. Her husband was struggling with the weight of the saw, making a jagged, uneven cut into the base of the massive trunk. It was the most reckless, idiotic thing I had ever witnessed. I sprinted outside, screaming at them to stop. "What are you doing? Are you insane? You're going to get someone killed." Karen just sneered at me. "This is HOA property, and we are carrying out the board's decision. Go back inside and mind your own business." Her husband didn't even look up. He just kept wrestling with the chainsaw, sweat pouring down his face. The cut was dangerously deep, and the tree was already starting to make ominous creaking sounds. I called 911 immediately. As I was on the phone with the dispatcher, trying to explain the sheer stupidity unfolding in my yard, I heard it. A sound I will never forget, a deep, groaning crack that seemed to shake the very ground, followed by a splintering roar. It was happening in slow motion. The great oak, which had stood for 100 years, was finally giving way. But it wasn't falling away from my house, into the open green space, as they had probably, in their infinite ignorance, intended. No, the terrible, amateur cut they'd made had unbalanced it completely. It was falling directly toward my home. I screamed. The dispatcher was yelling something on the phone, but I couldn't hear her. All I could hear was the rushing sound of leaves and the splintering crash of wood. The house shook violently as the massive trunk and its branches tore through my roof. It sounded like a bomb had gone off. Dust, insulation, and splintered wood exploded into the air. When the shaking stopped, there was a sudden, eerie silence. A huge portion of the tree was now sitting inside my master bedroom and my living room. Rain had started to fall, and it was pouring directly into my house through a gaping hole in the roof. The aftermath was pure chaos. Firefighters, police, and paramedics arrived. Thankfully, my family was safe. That's the only thing that mattered in that moment. But the damage was catastrophic. The entire back half of my house was destroyed. The main support beams were shattered. The place was declared uninhabitable on the spot. Karen and her husband were just standing there, wide-eyed and pale, finally realizing the magnitude of their arrogance. The legal battle that followed was long and draining, but ultimately, justice was served. Faced with overwhelming evidence, the 911 call, photos, my cease and desist letter, dozens of neighbor testimonies, the HOA's insurance refused to cover the damages, citing the board's gross negligence and illegal actions. Karen, her husband, and the 2 board members who voted with her were found personally liable for all the damages. The court ordered them to pay for the complete reconstruction of my home, all of my legal fees, and significant punitive damages for their reckless endangerment. It cost them everything. They had to sell their homes and drain their savings. Karen was removed from the HOA board in disgrace, and the community has since enacted new bylaws to prevent anyone from ever wielding that kind of unchecked power again. While I'm glad we got justice, it's a hollow victory. My home is being rebuilt, but it will never be the same. And every time I look out my window, I see the empty space where that beautiful 100-year-old tree once stood, a monument to one person's foolish pride and the devastating consequences it can have. This whole ordeal has been a painful lesson in why HOAs need accountability and why you should never ever underestimate the destructive power of a Karen with a chainsaw. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've had your own HOA horror story, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content. Stay safe out there.